Well, now, should you boycott Piers Morgan? That's me, of course. A number of people seem to think so online. The hashtag's been trending all week, pushed by several high-profile Muslims and pro-Palestinian accounts. That's despite the show, in my opinion, doing more to give a platform to pro-Palestinian voices since this war began than any other, probably in the world.
End the blockade, the end the apartheid, the end the occupation.
The notion that Israel is defending itself is as absurd as the notion that the rapist is defending itself from the victim.
That's a big charge to make about the President of the United States.
He has just lied before getting any evidence.
But dealing with Israel is so difficult. It's like being in a relationship with a narcissistic psychopath.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Have you never heard that?
Bullshit.
Palestinians are just numbers. They are not numbers. They are human.
Well, despite this, the campaign against him has been led by the AN Institute and backed by several prominent voices in the community. Here's what lawyer Mohammed Akunji, the former lawyer of ISIS bride Shamima Begum, had to say.
The fellow's just acting like a petulant child. He might as well, frankly, interview himself with a mirror on his show at this point. Absolutely no manners, behaves appallingly. It's actually an embarrassment. So until and unless he can demonstrate that he knows now how to interview people with a bit of good manners and grace, then I just don't want to hear it anymore. I suggest everyone boycott him.
Well, tonight I thought I'd face this boycott head-on in uncensored style with as much good grace and manners as I can muster. Joining me to discuss this is the Deputy Editor of Muslim News website, 5 Pillars, Dilly Hussain, which has written and spoken a lot about this week about why Muslims should be boycotting me. So, Mr. Hussain, thank you for joining me. Why should I be boycotted? My position is, as I've just shown with that mashup, genuinely do not think there's a television news show in the world that has given a more consistent or bigger platform to pro-Palestinian voices. And honestly, the only interviews that have got fractious have come when I've asked the question, do you view Hamas as terrorists? Do you condemn what they did on October the 7th? And if people prevaricate then, I have got angry because I just think that's non-negotiable. To their credit, many pro-Palestinian voices haven't tried to do that. They've accepted it was an appalling terrorist attack. And then we move on to often very civilized debate. But you know, if you can't assess what happened then for what it clearly was, I have a problem with that. Now, I just think overall, I don't get the boycott. Why would you want to stop people watching a show that has so many voices giving your side of this story?
Is our segment going to be as courteous as the one you just did with Mark Regev?
You think that was courteous?
I think it was courteous and respectful.
Yeah,
do you think we can have that engagement?
Do you think I asked him good questions?
You gave him enough time to answer without interjecting.
You know what I think about Mark Regev? He's always very respectful to me. He answers the questions. You may not agree with the answers.
I will answer all your questions.
But when people come on, Jeremy Corbyn, the doctor earlier this week, when people come on and simply won't give a yes or no answer to a yes or no question, that also can be aggravating. You know, sometimes I get a bit intemperate. Sometimes I do get a bit emotional about stuff. It's an emotional story, right?
Do you want to use this opportunity to apologise to 1 billion Muslim women?
No.
Why is that?
Because it was completely misconstrued.
Because it was in response to the whole filth comment,
yes.
Isn't it? Yeah?
So the context of my question was that if you want to treat women in the way that this member of his organisation...
Why was that your instinctive response? Because
I felt that that quote was so disgusting that one of his own group had talked about needing to get rid of a secular law, bring in Sharia law, so you could get rid of LGBT filth and feminist filth. And then the first reaction of a doctor was to say, I agree. And I was like, really? Okay. That's how you want to treat women? Okay. You want to treat women as feminist filth? Now, it got clipped up purely as me saying, what, you want them to be oppressed? That wasn't what I said. I don't think actually anyone who watched the whole thing like you did.
People have seen your monologue.
Yeah.
They've seen your clarification.
Yeah.
And it's still trending.
Yes, because the original clip was so misleading. Okay. It made out that I think all women who are Muslims are oppressed, or all those who want to become Muslims would be heading towards oppression. So I don't feel that.
So you don't want to apologise to those Muslim women who were offended?
No, I want to apologise to anybody who watched the clip that was put out.
What about those who have watched
and in my view was deliberately misled. Okay. Deliberately misled. Because I don't believe that.
What about your statement from 2019, you and I, on the LGBT issue? You described Muslim parents protesting peacefully within the law of the land as they're behaving as if they're in Islamabad. Do you stand by that comment?
Remind me of that?
Muslim parents in Birmingham protesting against LGBTQ education to be taught to 4 or 5-year-olds. You said twice with Samantha Reid, and I had to check you the second time. You said, why are they behaving like it's Islamabad?
Okay, look, I don't remember us doing that, but I'll go and check it and I'll give you a response when I've checked it.
If you did say that, do you think that's an appropriate comment?
It depends. I mean, it depends. I'm trying to remember. I was on Good Morning Britain, right? So this is 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at it. I would have probably taken a view that if people were protesting in a very aggressive manner about LGBT education, I would probably think at the time that that was inappropriate.
Why Islamabad?
I don't know. I have to go back and look at the quote, right?
Another instinctive response.
Okay, but you haven't mentioned this before, so you've mentioned it to me now. I'll go back and watch it. I will. I'll go back and watch it. I'll give you a measured response. But let's get to...
Sharia law. Do you hate Sharia law?
I don't hate Sharia law.
You said you know about Sharia law, so what credentials...
I know that Sharia law operates in a number of countries around the world, and I know that in somewhere like Afghanistan, the women who are under Sharia law imposed by the Taliban are deeply oppressed. Would you agree with that?
What qualifications
Well,
do
hang
you have
on.
to even talk about Sharia?
Would you agree with that?
What qualifications
Would you agree
do
with
you
that?
have? What
Well, hang on.
qualifications do you have?
Let's try to reach points of agreement. Yes. Do you agree that the way the Taliban treats women is oppression?
I'm going to answer your question.
Can you answer it?
I will answer your question.
Well, answer it.
But I want to know why...
Well, don't answer supplementary first.
but
answer my question.
You said you know about Sharia law.
I've just asked you a specific question.
I just want to know what your credentials are.
I'm just
speak about this.
I'm just asking you about the situation in Afghanistan,
There are
where the Taliban interpretation and implementation of Sharia law, in my opinion, and the opinion of most people outside of Afghanistan.
Who's most people?
Well, I'm about to ask you whether you agree with it.
most people?
Do you think the way women are treated in Afghanistan by the Taliban
There are aspects
is oppression or not?
There are aspects of misapplication of Sharia
No
law.
education?
There's a... Piers, we're going down that road again, aren't we?
Well, you tell me.
I've just said to you there are misapplication of Sharia law, not just in Afghanistan, across the breadth.
Is the Taliban misapplying it?
I'm asking you, what is your expertise to even comment on
Sorry,
this?
it's my show. I do the question.
But you invited me.
I'm just asking you a question. You haven't answered it. Is the Taliban implementing Sharia law accurately or not?
Not entirely and comprehensively.
Okay, so we can agree that there is oppression of women.
There is most certainly aspects to reform and review in the education system of Afghanistan.
Would you say the way women are treated in Afghanistan right now by Taliban is oppressive?
I don't appreciate this line of questioning, Piers.
Of course you don't.
I don't.
Because you know why?
I'll tell you why.
Do you know why?
And it is this.
Because someone will clip up
No,
you saying
no.
the Taliban are oppressing women, and before you know it, Dilly, you will be trending worldwide. Everyone will go, wow, Dilly Hussain says Muslim women are oppressed.
It is this
you see how easy it is to mislead people?
It is this type of questioning what makes people think you are Islamophobic.
Yeah. This is why you want to boycott me, because you don't want me asking difficult questions.
It's got nothing to do with it. Do you want me to
You don't want me asking difficult questions.
So the reason why people are calling for your boycott is because you offended 1 billion Muslim women.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No.
Yes, why is it trending?
Okay, as I've just said to you, I could
you
now,
actually stand by that
I could now clip up you criticising the Taliban. Wait. Criticising the way Taliban treat women under Sharia law. I could clip just that bit of you stammering and looking awkward and conceding it's not right? And then before you know it, it becomes Dilly Hussain whacks the Taliban, this is wrong, women are being oppressed, blah, blah, blah. And you'll sit there going, hang on. But that's how it works. It's misleading, it's deliberate,
But you have
it's
form.
antagonistic.
You have
I don't
form.
have form.
You have form.
No, I don't.
You have form.
No, I don't.
Do you want to give me the example? You want me to give you the example?
Let me give you a better example. Let's go back to 2003, when this country, my country, launched an illegal invasion of Iraq. Right? Who stood up then, right, for Iraqis? Who stood up for innocent people in Iraq and launched the biggest media campaign against the British government in modern times? Me. Right? Do you know that? Yes. Do you remember that? Absolutely. Do you give me any credit for that? Or do you look at me as the Muslim basher? Because I'm not, and you know I'm not.
So we're going back to 2003. Why don't we talk about 2019? Why don't we talk about...
You went back first.
No, the fact that you have no qualifications to talk about jihad. You don't even have a primary principles basis to talk about
no
jihad.
Complications. I've been a journalist for 35 years. I've had to cover this for 35 years.
And you never pose these such questions to any of your Israeli guests about why
You've literally just heard me for 10 minutes ask difficult questions.
Netanyahu and senior diplomats who have used biblical verses, biblical verse of Amalek to carry out genocide. Have you questioned anyone about that?
Did you watch my show last night?
Did you question?
Did you watch my show last night?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You wouldn't have seen Norman Finkelstein then for half an hour talking exactly about that.
I'm talking about yourself questioning your guests.
You've just literally heard me grilling Netanyahu's spokesman.
You call that a grilling?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
You call that a grilling?
Yes. And by the way, if you answered the questions in the same respectful way he does and answered the questions, it would be more respectful. The tone. No, because you won't answer the questions.
What question do you want answered?
I just asked you, do you condemn the way the Taliban treat women?
I just said to you that there are applications and misapplications of Sharia law, not just in Afghanistan, across the breadth of the Muslim world.
Okay, let's go over the stuff that was contentious with the doctor, right? I asked him Was what happened October the 7th a terror attack? Was it?
I believe it to be a military offensive by various factions of Palestinian groups, not just Hamas, and many of them are not even banned under UK law.
Was it a terrorist attack?
Pardon?
Was it a terrorist attack?
Have you come to an agreement about what it means to be a terrorist?
I've got the full rundown of what terrorism is, as I had at the time.
But you didn't.
No, I had it. I wanted to know what the doctor's interpretation of it was.
I'm not the doctor.
What's your interpretation of terrorism?
Terrorism
Yeah.
is an act of violence targeting children and civilians to advance the political...
Correct. Is that what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
I'm asking you.
I don't believe it was an act of terrorism. No.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Even though they literally did what you just articulated as a definition of terrorism.
Do you have proof that they targeted women and children, civilians specifically? What's the proof?
I'll tell you the proof.
What's the proof?
You what?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
Oh, you don't think it happened?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
So also, like the doctor, you deny...
No.
You
I've
deny
seen the videos.
You
I'm
deny
a
it
journalist.
happened.
I've authenticated the videos.
Right.
I've seen the videos.
Right.
But show me the proof that women and children were specifically targeted as opposed to...
They were literally burned alive in homes.
Okay, where's the proof?
People were beheaded.
Proof.
Babies were killed.
Name me one child. One child was beheaded. Name me one child that was beheaded. And I will mourn and condemn with you.
I just said people
Name me
were
one
beheaded.
child.
I didn't say a child.
No primary source
right?
subjective.
No. So just to be clear,
primary source
just to be
evidence.
clear, like the doctor, you do not believe that anyone was beheaded, that children were killed. Let me clarify where I'm wrong here. Were these things happening?
Israeli civilians were killed.
How many?
I don't know. Mark Regev doesn't even know. We need to first establish...
No, they do know.
How many...
We know at least 1,200 people,
Israeli
including
citizens?
around 400 soldiers. So we're assuming 800 civilians were killed, and we know at least...
How many of them were killed by
At
Israel?
least another 200 odd civilians were taken hostage,
How many
right?
of them were killed by Israel? For that
How many do you
direct
think?
him? A lot higher
No,
than... A
it's
lot
not.
higher. Yes, it is.
There's no evidence of that.
Of course it is.
No, it's not.
Just look at the Nova Music Festival and look at the burnt out cars.
You see,
Hamas doesn't even have
this is the
firepower
problem,
to
isn't
do
it?
that.
The real reason you want me boycotted is I'm telling the truth, and what you're doing is trying to convince viewers, and maybe your Muslim fan base, I don't know, you're trying to convince them that what we saw through the eyes of Hamas's own technology, where they gloated and boasted about what they'd done, didn't happen.
No, what I'm
and you want me
thinking-
to
no,
think,
not at
and you want me to think that even though you
Not at all.
articulated, hang on, you articulated a description of terrorism and then said that didn't apply to October the 7th, even though that's exactly what happened. You see, I would say that's delusional. I would say it's deliberately misleading, as was the attempt to try and make me apologise to Muslim women for apparently
course, you
calling them
stand by that
oppressed,
comment.
which I didn't do.
And you stand by that comment.
Which I didn't, yes.
You couldn't care less about the offence caused to 1 billion Muslim women.
Yeah, but
or 1.8
I've
billion
explained to
Muslims
you-
about talking about jihad and Sharia, the sacred law of Muslims.
There was a deliberate attempt to misquote me out of context to try and make out that it's the way you interpreted it. Anyone who watched the whole exchange knew what I was doing.
Do you
That
believe
when you
that-
have a member of that group talking about
Do you
filthy
believe Israel has
feminism...
committed terrorism?
Sorry? No, I don't. No.
Okay. Do you believe state actors can commit terrorism?
It's possible.
It's possible, but you don't believe Israel has?
I do not.
With those figures that are screaming at you at your face.
If you'd watched the show last night, you would have seen my monologue was a strident criticism.
I don't watch your monologue so religiously.
You know what? Maybe you should watch a bit more if you want to boycott the show. If you want people to stop watching me, it might be useful if you ever watch it.
I do watch it here and there.
Yeah, but do you though?
Yeah, I do.
Dilly?
Yeah, no,
or do you
no,
watch
it's-
the odd little clip on social
Chris, not at
media
all. The
that's
issue
been taken out of
is-
context
no,
and then you say,
the issue
boycott
here-
this guy?
The issue isn't about boycotting Piers Morgan per se. It's about unless you rectify the way you deal with your Muslim guests, then boycott is on the options. That's what it is. Now, if you're saying to me, did Hamas commit an act of terrorism? I've made it abundantly clear. It was a military offensive by various factions, not just Hamas. Now,
It wasn't a military offensive.
Oh, wasn't it? What was it?
It was a terrorist attack against predominantly civilians
But yet-
who were brutalised, they were tortured,
but
they were
7,000 children,
burned,
7,000
some
children,
were beheaded.
decapitated Palestinian children isn't terrorism, is it? 7,000 children dead,
I have-
without heads, without heads.
Again, if you had
Without heads,
again,
without limbs.
Again, if you had watched my show last night, you would have heard exactly what my view of
Is
this
it a war
was.
crime?
But here's the thing:
Is it a war
you
crime?
did. The president of the United States thinks there've been indiscriminately bombing.
So basically, you're just going to parrot whatever Biden says.
No,
Is that what it is?
no. I'm going to say,
Do you not have a conscience of
if
your
the
own?
president of the United States has intelligence of indiscriminate bombing, that is a war crime. We've heard the denial.
Took 70 days.
We've heard the denial. But if it turns out the United States has intelligence of indiscriminate bombing, that is a war crime, and I will call it for what it is. Right?
So what Hamas did?
Hang on. Is what's going on in Gaza horrible? Yes. Is it disproportionate? I believe it is. Are they going to win against Hamas and wipe them all out? I don't think they are. Is America going to lose patience very soon? Yes. It's not ethnic cleansing.
Is it
and it's
genocide?
not genocide. No, it's not. Because that actually involves the eradication of an entire people. If they wanted to, they could drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza and kill everybody there.
We've already had those
that would be
suggestions by
genocide.
video
I don't believe it qualifies as genocide, right? And these terms are important. Are the Palestinians being treated?
Finkelstein believes
Are the Palestinians, as he's articulated last night, at length and very powerfully? And we had a very reasonable conversation, by the way. Right? I commend you to watch it. Go back and watch it, and maybe you wouldn't be calling for boycotts, right? I genuinely
You're very triggered about being boycotted.
Yeah, because I feel
Why is that?
I feel it's really unfair.
Why?
I do, because I don't think you've been watching the show, and that's quite clear.
I've watched some of these shows.
And that's quite clear. I don't think you
not quite clear.
watch me sit with Bassem Youssef for 2 hours and really try and get under the weeds of this conflict with somebody who can talk me all through it, right?
So why didn't Mohammed Hijab get that same treatment? Low-key get that same treatment?
But
Why
they
didn't
have.
Sam Zomra get that same
They
treatment?
have.
Do you know how religiously I have actually watched certain episodes? That on average you interrupt your Muslim guest 21.3 seconds.
Really?
What's your views on that?
Did you watch the Bassem Youssef interview?
No. I said
I literally interviewed him for more than any other guest.
Excluding Bassam Youssef.
Excluding him. How many others do you want to exclude? There was another Palestinian doctor that I interviewed at length and never interrupted him once.
Whenever you've had segments where it's 15, 20 minutes with a Muslim guest, why do you interrupt every 27.3
it's not.
seconds?
You know who it is I interrupt? It's the extreme elements.
Oh, so you're now throwing these labels?
Yeah.
Why am I extreme?
Like, I think
Explain to your viewers why am I extreme?
Because your attempt to deny what happened on October the 7th is an extremist response.
You call me an
Your
extremist.
refusal to call it terrorism
that's
is an
it.
extremist
so there we have
response.
it. There we have it. So I believe you're an Islamophobe and a genocide enabler for not using the correct term to describe Israel's indiscriminate genocide.
That's fine. You're perfectly entitled to call me that.
There we are.
You've got to actually produce evidence of that.
Produce evidence of that.
Yeah,
Are 7,000 children without
I am not
names and heads?
remotely Islamophobic.
Yeah.
Never have been.
Carry on.
Never will be. Right? Ever. Right back to when I led the campaign against the Iraq War in this country, against my own government. Right? Never have been. It's an ugly slur you've tossed around because you've seen some misconstrued clips from an interview with a guy who wanted to deny that Hamas are terrorists or they committed the terror attack. And the reason you did that and fueled it is because you yourself don't think what happened on October the 7th was terror.
I firmly echo the sentiments of the 91% of 13,550 people polled that believe you're an Islamophobe.
Let me ask you, if you want to boycott me and shut me up and not give me any exposure...
That was never the end goal, by the way. It was always a case of the community reviewing how we engage with people.
But you want to stop Muslims coming on the show?
Unless you fix up the way you engage with them, yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing here?
Huh? What am I doing here? I nearly pulled out, believe it or not.
Why are you here?
I came this close. Oh, because Barati, your producer's been on my case.
But why are you here?
To converse, to discuss.
You're a grown man.
Oh, I'm here to check whether
Did my booker bully you into it?
Who bullied you into it?
Did my booker bully you into it?
Not at all.
So why are you here?
I'm here to ask you squarely, are you an Islamophobe?
No.
So can you clarify those statements about Muslim women being oppressed?
I've already clarified
and
it.
you've not apologised for it. So that means you stand by it.
I've clarified it.
Stand by it. What do you know about Sharia law?
I clarified it for you.
Do you apologise?
I've also clarified that
I've also
clarified that you believe the Taliban is oppressing women in Afghanistan.
No, I believe. Where did I say that?
You see how easy it is to twist things? See how easy it is to twist things?
Piers,
we can have a story.
Anyone who rejects Pierce's version, which is basically the Israeli version of events, they're an extremist. They're terrorist sympathisers. Who are you going to tag after this interview? You've got no one to tag, have you?
I think the story out of this will be that you have attacked the Taliban for their treatment of women.
Who are you going to tag?
Which is kind of ironic, isn't it?
Who are you going to tag?
Huh?
Who are you going to tag after this exchange?
Who am I going to tag?
You tagged the NHS.
Oh, I did. I'll tell you why I tagged that. I'll tell you why.
Who are you going to tag?
Because I genuinely believe it is wrong that a doctor in the NHS in this
25 years
country
we served this community.
can publicly support a terrorist group which is an illegal entity in this country. Hang on. Hamas is a prescribed terror group. He said what they did was resistance. That is supporting them. It is not saying they're a terror group. This country says they are. What he did was a crime. By coming on this programme, it's a crime. You may not think so.
When did you become the law enforcement agency of the United Kingdom?
I'm sorry. I'm not the law enforcement agency.
You're a journalist.
It is a criminal.
CPS.
It is a criminal,
CPS.
as you know from those who've been supporting Hamas at the protests. Okay. If you publicly support a prescribed terror group in this country, it is a crime.
So choosing to face resistance over terrorism is support. Is that what you're saying?
It is support, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I just ask you just one last thing?
Sure.
One last thing. The act of Great Britain in liberating Europe under Nazi occupation was resistance. What that is, yes, it was.
It wasn't resistance.
Of course it was resisting.
We were
You're resisting a foreign invader in the continent.
Right, we were taking down the Nazis.
Okay, you're taking out... Well, guess what? According to the Palestinians, they're taking down the Israeli-occupied colonial settlers. Do you see where we can just carry on? We can just carry on. What do we
You know
do,
what,
Piers?
Dilly,
What do we
here's
do?
the thing.
What do we do?
I want to have that conversation.
Can we have it more respectfully in the
Yes,
future?
we can.
Wicked.
But don't try and launch a boycott to stop the one guy who's putting up more Palestinian voices than anyone else in the world.
Why do you interrupt every 27.3 seconds with most of your Muslim guests?
If you'd watched last night for the whole show, you would have seen I didn't. Okay. It depends who the guest is and how they're behaving.
Have I angered you today?
Well, only when you don't answer questions.
Which question of his have I not answered?
A lot. You won't even realise it. Go back and watch it.
Yeah, and you didn't answer a lot either.
Go back and watch it. But here's the point. We've reached a point of a bit more of a civilised dialogue, right?
Yeah.
We can do that. I would like to have that
Just
with
treat
you.
your Muslim guests better.
I do.
With dignity.
You're not
with
watching
courtesy.
enough of the interviews.
No, I've seen Abdul Wahid, I've seen
you're
Mohammed
not.
Hijab, I've seen Loki, I've
No.
seen Sam Zomlo, I've seen all these episodes.
No, you're not watching.
them all.
You're not watching isolated shows with people who come in and, by the way, are very aggressive with me, which is fine. If they're going to be aggressive with me, I'll be aggressive back. If people want to be calm and respectful, as Norman Finkelstein was last night, I'll be calm and respectful back. If you chose to be like that tonight, I'd have been the same way with you.
It's been a bit of mishmash of
Bit of mishmash. Come back again. Let's keep having the dialogue.
Yeah.
It's important. I would like to think we can be constructive on
Do
the
you
show.
promise to treat your Muslim guests better according to what they accuse you of?
No, because the idea that somehow I'm an Islamophobe bears no relation to what viewers who watch the show every night would think. You haven't watched the show very often. You've made it.
What's your views on the millions, tens of millions of Muslims and non-Muslims in global South countries that have taken to the streets to voice support for the events of 7th of October?
I think they're wrong.
Tens of millions.
Yes.
Hundreds of millions if you include the breadth of the Muslim
And
world.
by the way, it's wrong to support any terror attack.
Okay.
When hundreds and hundreds of civilians
the Muslim
are
world-
brutally, medievally, barbarically murdered in that manner, the only human response is to say it is wrong.
So
And if
airplane
if you
dropping bombs
support
is
it,
okay?
you support terrorism.
Who supports terrorism?
If you support what they did on October 7th, you support terrorism.
That's an absolute gratuitous accusation. And
No, it's not. They're a terror
it's
group.
horrible.
By the way, you're in England, where they're a terror group.
So you think
prescribed by
yeah,
the
we know
UK
that.
government.
But you have described, according to your own definition, that if you choose to not say it's terrorism but resistance, that's support. Where did you get that from?
If it's called resistance, not terrorism, you're supporting them.
Resistance is just a coinage of a term to describe a political act of violence.
Right.
That's what it is.
Resistance, but do you support what they did?
No, I'm asking you.
No, I do the question.
Choose?
Do you support what they did then?
I believe in the right of every single Palestinian to do what is enshrined and protected under
commit an act of
international
terrorism.
law. Yes, because you reject international law when it applies to Muslims and Palestinians.
To commit an act of terrorism.
I'm not doing this, Piers.
Not doing what? Answering a question?
I believe in the right of Palestinians.
Is that why you want to
exist.
boycott me?
No.
Huh?
No, I'm sat here, I'm talking to you.
Yeah, but
Palestinians have
you've
the
now
right.
dug yourself into a very
Palestinians-
strange
no, I
place.
don't. No.
Well, you've ended up saying that
No.
basically you believe in every Palestinian's right to commit terrorism.
No, I believe in the right of every Palestinian to resist settler colonialism according to international law.
Okay.
The first protocol of Geneva Conventions 1949.
So you do support what happened-
1982 resolution.
So you do support what
Article
happened on October the 7th?
4743.
You
Pardon?
support what happened on October the 7th?
I support whatever happens that they were allowed to do within international law of all Palestinian factions involved.
And you think what happened was within international law?
Pardon?
You think what happened was lawful?
According to international law, yes.
You think what happened on October the 7th was lawful?
Yeah.
Dilly, honestly, I would love to try and end this respectfully.
Under international
but
law
that
and
is the
Islamic
biggest
law.
crock of crap I've ever heard in my life.
So is your
that you think 1,200 people being murdered is not a crime.
And I believe that the fact that you cannot even call a war crime and a genocide when it takes 19,000 people is absolutely cow manure as well.
Okay, then we agree on mutual manure.
There we
But
are.
I appreciate you coming on
Thank you for having
and
me on.
defying your own boycott.
Okay.